When there is an ending, there was a beginning. Every victim has a picture to paint. Every true crime has its time and place. Please join our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. Welcome to our MJ podcast, the series MJ Public Service Announcement. This is part 13, 2020, a new year. Welcome to the new year, 2020. We are coming to you from our office in Plattsburgh, New York. My name is Mark, and I will be your host for this public service announcement. Here it is, January 2020. A new year filled with hope to gain answers and to seek justice for all victims and their families. I would like to thank our staff for all their hard work concerning any given case. At any given time, MJA has 44 staff members and 18 of us are related in some way. Therefore, it extends our abilities to approach any case, no matter how impossible the case might seem to be. For those that have kept up with our 18-year history, you will see that we have taken on cold cases that nobody else would touch. I would like to thank our staff for giving 600 man-hours a month trying to help identify the John and Jane Does. I want to thank our staff for giving up their own time and money to do this type of work. I want to thank all the other volunteer groups like ours who have helped MJA in some way on any given case and the advice you give when we seek it. I want to extend my thanks to all the experts who offered their services for free to help MJA with any given case when they could. What I have learned is in 2019, we produced more info in 2019 than we did in 2018. And in 2018, we produced more info than in 2017. Even though MJA has shared some success, I am sorry we have failed to reach the common goal, and that is to solve your loved one's case so you, our clients, would have answers as to what happened to your loved one. As you know, MJA will never give up on any case. We have had several cases that we have turned over to law enforcement on a silver platter, and they have failed to seal the deal. If MJA is wrong, well, show us we are wrong, and that hasn't happened. I also find it odd that no law enforcement agency has ever questioned our findings to the media. Let's take a pause for the cause, and when we return, we will introduce you to some cases that we feel will have major movement in the case in 2020. Be back in a moment. MJA would like to give a special shout out to the Cold Case Chronicles podcast on Apple Podcasts, which was launched to the public on July 12, 2019. It's a group of women who have teamed up for a common goal: to research and to investigate cold cases, to assist the police and the victim's family whenever it's possible. Please listen to Amy, Allie, and Danny reporting their findings of their research and investigation on any given case. These ladies are the real deal. They know what they are doing. They are doing some very good work. MJA became a big fan of the Cold Case Chronicles after MJA investigator Mark Harper was interviewed during their coverage of the Shannon Sherrill case. Once again, that's the Cold Case Chronicles on Apple Podcasts. Please check it out.
Angel came down from heaven yesterday. She stayed with me just enough to rescue him. And she told me a story yesterday about the sweet love between the moon and the deep blue sea. And then she spread her wings high over me. She said she's gonna come back tomorrow. And I say, fly, oh my sweet angel. Fly on through the sky. Sure enough, this morning came unto me. Silhouetted against the child's sunrise. And my angel, she said unto me, today is the day for you to rise. Take my hand, you're gonna be my man, you're gonna rise. And she took me high over yonder. And I say, fly, oh my sweet angel. Fly on through the sky. Fly, oh my sweet angel. Forever I'm gonna be by your side. Forever I'm gonna be by your side.
Welcome back to our MJ podcast, the series MJA Public Service Announcement. This is part 13, 2020, a new year. The cases we will introduce are cases we feel will have major movement in the case in 2020. Welcome to New Hampshire. Missing Maura Murray. On February 9, 2004, Miss Murray went missing after a one-car accident outside of Woodsville, New Hampshire. Some 7 to 8 minutes later, when police and EMTs arrived, Miss Murray was gone without a trace. This case is far from being a cold case. Things heated up in 2019, and it's a given. 2020 will bring more info and more heat. At this time, Boots on the Ground is planning multiple searches for Miss Murray, meeting on April 30th, 2020 and ending May 5th, 2020. Welcome to Vermont. Missing Brianna Maitland. On March 19th, 2004, Brianna Maitland went missing after leaving work in Montgomery, Vermont. Miss Maitland's vehicle was found 1.3 miles away from her workplace. The vehicle had been rammed into reverse into an abandoned house, and Miss Maitland was nowhere to be found. Mr. Maitland, the victim's father, has brought on more resources to work on his daughter's disappearance. Welcome to Indiana. Missing Shannon Sherrill. 6-year-old Shannon Sherrill was abducted on October 5th, 1986 from Thorntown, Indiana. MJA got involved in the case in November 2003, and the Thorntown Marshal agreed to work with MJA and open up the whole case file on Shannon Sherrill's abduction. In 2004, MJA came across some info in the case file that was dated October 5th, 1986. That info was 2 witness statements about a certain vehicle, and there was a composite sketch of the driver. Law enforcement had tunnel vision the very first day of the investigation, and this info was never investigated, and this info was never released to the public. MJA took that info and started investigating these statements. In December 2005, the Thorntown Marshal contacted MJA and said he had received a letter from an Ohio inmate who claimed to have info on the Sherrill case. When the marshal was asked when he was going to interview the Ohio inmate, he came up with excuse after excuse not being able to go to Ohio. In June 2006, MJA turned over all of our info to a Kokomo, Indiana Tribune reporter, Megan Durback, and she led MJA to the name of the Ohio inmate who wrote the letter to the marshal. The Ohio inmate at one time was a cellmate for 5 years with 1980s child serial killer David E. Penton. The Ohio inmate's info in the letter matched the 2 witness statements, the vehicle, and the sketch we were investigating. In June 2006, the Indiana State Police with the Thorntown Marshal and MJA met at the Ohio prison to question the inmate. MJA has questioned the Ohio inmate on several occasions through the years, and the last time being in 2016. The Boone County, Indiana Prosecutor's Office has had the findings of the Indiana State Police's investigation since February 2007. As we speak, David E. Penton hasn't been charged with the abduction of 6-year-old Shannon Sherrill. MJA has a targeted search area for Shannon Sherrill that covers 6.5 miles, and we hope to get that search done before the end of the summer. Welcome to Louisiana. The mysterious death of Marcus Merritt Sr. On January 3rd, 2013, Marcus Merritt Sr. was found deceased in Leonville, Louisiana, in his bedroom from what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mr. Merritt wasn't given an autopsy, and no gunshot residue test was done to see if he had even fired a gun. The coroner never saw Mr. Merritt's body. He sent his attendants to collect Mr. Merritt's body from the scene, and he was taken straight to the funeral home. Mr. Merritt's mother, Royce Eckley, didn't believe that her son had taken his own life. In March 2014, Royce Eckley contacted MJA for help, and she sent MJA file after file about her son's death. Our MJA staff seen red flag after red flag from the start of this so-called suicide. MJA and Together We Stand out of California produced enough research and evidence that in June 2016, Mr. Merritt's body was exhumed to have a proper autopsy, or so we thought. The autopsy only brought more questions, and it didn't provide any answers. MJA will be paying a visit to Leonville, Louisiana this year to take a more aggressive approach to what we know to be a homicide and not a suicide. Suicide is the new homicide because it's a quick fix for everyone except the victim and the victim's family. MJA and Together We Stand has produced enough evidence that we are asking for a death inquest or a grand jury to hear the facts of this so-called suicide. Welcome to Indiana, the mysterious death of Jessica Elliott. On December 30th, 2015, 37-year-old Jessica Elliott, a mother of two, was rushed to Reed Hospital in Richmond, Indiana, for what the boyfriend told EMTs was a drug overdose. After being treated for 9 hours for a drug overdose with no response, Jessica Elliott was transferred to St. Vincent's Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana. A forensic nurse noticed injuries to Jessica Elliott that wouldn't have come from a drug overdose, and it was also learned that she had a subdural hematoma. Jessica Elliott would later die from these injuries. The drugs the boyfriend said she took to overdose wasn't found in her system. Jessica Elliott's death was ruled undetermined. We believe there is enough evidence to charge the suspect by Jessica Elliott's injuries and his false statements. He even admitted to roughing up Miss Elliott, but claiming she was the aggressor. The false statement claiming it was a drug overdose delayed a 9-hour of treating Miss Elliott's brain bleeds. MJA and others believe there is enough evidence to take this case to a death inquest or a grand jury. Welcome to Indiana, accidental or murder. Jason Dale Bolton. 16-year-old Jason Dale Bolton's body was found in Franklin and Fayette County, Indiana, near Laurel, Indiana. First look at the crime scene and witness statements make everything look like that Jason was laying in the road and a car ran him over. But the evidence states that Jason was killed by childhood friends after leaving a party with a close friend, Tiny Tim. These so-called friends made Jason Bolton's death look like an accident. Jason Dale Bolton had parts of his privates that were cut off, and his body was mutilated in other ways as well. His testicles were found about 17 to 23 feet away from his body in the grass off the country road. A lot of the injuries don't match with being ran over by a vehicle. Through the years, many people have changed their stories of what happened that night. MJA and the Bolton family wish to have a death inquest or a grand jury to rule if the 16-year-old's death was an accident. The top witness would have been Tiny Tim, but he is now deceased, so we move forward to seek another witness to the events that happened on that night. MJA has had contact with the podcast, the Cold Case Chronicles, and they are thinking about investigating the Bolton case and doing podcasts of their findings. Welcome to Texas. The mysterious death of Pam Thomas. On April 2nd, 2015, in Montgomery, Texas, 50-year-old Pam Thomas was discovered dead by her husband, Roy Thomas, in their bedroom. Pam Thomas was a mother of 2 daughters, and Pam had 1 grandchild. Pam's daughters was from a past marriage, so Roy Thomas was their stepfather. The time Roy gave to police when he discovered Pam's body and to the time when Roy placed the 911 call, 14 minutes had passed. Police determined that Pam Thomas died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the right temple. The path of the gunshot wound was from right to left, slightly from the back, and a slight downward angle when the body was in the anatomic position, which means Pam Thomas was standing. The victim, Pam Thomas, had several different new and old contusions on different parts of her body. What I find telling is no drugs or alcohol were found in Pam Thomas's system. The experience I've had with true suicides, the victims always have something in their system to help them along. The victim's mother and several of Pam Thomas's friends don't believe for a minute that Pam took her own life. The truth of the matter is, even though Pam's marriage was having problems, she had no problem leaving her husband. Pam Thomas was disappointed in the broken promises, but she wasn't depressed about it. From all indications, Pam Thomas didn't have a reason to take her own life. Pam Thomas's family and friends have been refused info concerning the so-called suicide, which I have learned, if it is a suicide, there is no open investigation, so there is no reason to turn down their request. Our job in 2020 is to get that info, the death room photos, autopsy photos, and any recordings. There is a law and a right of the victim's family to have an expert to look over their findings of suicide. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in, for you all are so kind. I have a quote for our listeners. Rise above the storm and you will find sunshine. Not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path. Mario Fernandez. Always remember, folks, that if you ever get bored with nothing to do, well, take a walk deep into the woods. You might be surprised at what you might find. That's the end of our MJ Public Service announcement. This was part 13, 2020, a new year. My name is Mark, and I was your host for this public service announcement. And we here at MJA say to all of you, good night from Plattsburgh, New York.
Hush, little angel.